Hey YouTube, well work's still getting in the way of my hobby and consequently I haven't made as much progress as I would have liked this week, and also I'm a day late getting the video up. Apologies for that, but let's get on and have a look what I did manage to get done. I've got the arms set up on the towers. They're sitting on the ground at the other end. Front of the tractor's propped up as you've seen in previous parts of the video. Now is the time to sort out the hydraulics. Now I know that these hydraulic rams are a bit bigger than I wanted, so I've got to cut them off, and that's always been the plan. Now I've got to bite the bullet and take the risk of ruining the ram by cutting it off and welding new ends onto it, because I want to cut it off there and weld a piece of tube on it to act as a pivot point there. I'm going to cut this other end off and weld a piece of tube across again to act as a pivot point there. Now the whole purpose of that is to shorten the ram to the point where it will fit in this dimension, but the ram itself still has enough extension, because I'm not changing the extension of the ram, to lift the bucket as high as I wanted to lift it. That's been the whole key of the design. I wanted to be able to lift the bucket high enough to dump stuff into the trailer, into my trailer, should I want to. So that was a consideration of getting a ram with this extension, but to get a ram with this extension is too long to fit in the other dimensions of the arms. So rather than have the arms made longer, sticking out further, I decided to cut them and go that route. Since the rams are not inexpensive, I'm sort of hoping that I don't mess it up, and that's what I'm about to do now, start cutting them up in order to weld the tubes onto them. So that's what I'm about to do now. Well, since my bandsaw is out of action at the moment, I still haven't got the part I need to fix it. I'm going to have to cut this on the power hacksaw. Does a good job, but just a bit slower. Done. It's a reasonably straight cut. Not perfect, but not too bad. Cleaver send off. I could have gone to the trouble of figuring out how to unscrew it, but I think it must be glued in with some Loctite or something similar. Maybe even heat shrunk on as well as screwed. Didn't want to come off anyway when I tried it. Cutting it off because I had to cut off the thread anyway because that's the length I need. Now this is what I found works for me for pulling these things in and out. These ones come with a couple of plastic covers for the ports, the oil ports. You have to take them out first. Then I just find the most convenient tool I got to shove through one end of it. Put that down on the floor. And then you just pull it up like that. It's still fairly stiff and hard to get started, and when it starts it comes with a bit of a rush. And then of course put your plastic oil port covers back in, because you don't want any rubbish getting into there while you're working on them. If it does, seals will be totally ruined in next to no time. While the hacksaw makes a terrible noise in the background, I'll set up this other one that I've already cut. I haven't got anything approaching a proper jig for it, but I figure I can do the next best by getting him all nicely levelled up in here. Hey, that's got him. And now I've got the annular cutter in there, 1 inch annular cutter for the 1 inch pins that are going through there. I've had a good look at this end, and I think if I put an annular cutter down almost up against this back plate here, maybe be 2 or 3 millimeters off of it, that'll leave enough meat on this side, and I can cut this off and round it off, and that should work. And if it doesn't work, I've still got enough room to weld my piece of tube in there. But this will save me making a piece of tube, and it should work just fine. Rather than scribe a centre line down here and then put a guide in, a pin in for want of a better term, to line it up on the centre line, I'm taking a different approach here. I've put it down and I've turned it by hand to leave a mark on it, and I'm just going to measure both sides of the mark, see how far away they are. One side is exactly 6 millimeters and the other side is exactly 6 millimeters, so gee, my Mark 1 eyeball's still pretty good, because I eyed that off when I clamped it and I thought that looked pretty right. Pretty happy with that result. Now the other key thing is to make sure that you got everything level, because, well, if you're doing it the way I'm doing it anyway, it's key, because I haven't got a long enough annular cutter to go through both sides, so I've got to drill this side, flip it over and drill the other side and get them precisely lined up. I think I can do it, but we shall see in a minute. Now, I want to give that just a little bit more juice on the speed. Cutting on 195, I go 275 because it's a smaller cut than I've been using. See how we go with that. There's not quite as much meat left there as there was up here, but since most of the load on this ram is going to be compressive, I don't see that it's going to be much of a problem. The only tension load that will be on it is basically when I put the bucket down on the ground and lift the front of the tractor up to disengage the towers. And I don't think that's going to be enough to worry it. I think that'll be plenty strong enough. Nice thick bit of metal, at least 10 mils, which is 3/8 of an inch. The trick to do now is to turn him over without losing our lineup. That is going to be hard to do. Nothing for it but to turn it over and see if I can get the same quality of lineup. Let's go off camera while I get that sorted. I've done the same deal as before, lowered him down, turned him by hand, left a mark there, measured it all up, made sure I was exactly side to side, and that I was just hitting the crease, same as I did on the other side. Fingers crossed, put him through and hope he lines up. Alright, by eye he looks pretty good. Well, there we have it, that one's all butchered up, ready to go. I'll cut the end off him up here and probably grind him a bit of a radius on him. First thing to do is to go over and see if these holes line up. Give it a bit of a clean up, and there it is, lines up just as well as the other one. I was worried about doing that. I've been sort of dragging my heels on doing it because of the risk of wrecking a perfectly good ram. So far so good. I've still got to weld this other end on, but fairly confident that I can get that done all right. Now I'll just set up and I'll drill the other one, but I'll do that off camera because you've seen how to do one. The other one's going to be exactly the same. Now that I've got the rams cut roughly where I think they should be, let's stick one in and see how... Oh, I can't because I still haven't got it cut roughly where I think it should be yet. I've got to cut these ends off. So we can look at him this way. He's basically going to sit about there, and yep, that's about where I want my hole. That'll come in pretty close to right. So yeah, on the right track, as I should be because I'm doing it off CAD plans that I drew, but it's always nice to check. Again, because the bandsaw's out of action, I'm going to do the next best thing, or what appears to be the next best thing to me, and use the chop saw here. Got to pack it out a little bit because the cover for the inlet port is still on it. I'm being careful that I cut through this top hole. So that's the end of it that I just cut sitting up there against the tractor seat. Let's zoom in on it because I want you to just notice that when I cut it off, I just left the barest hint of the other hole behind. Gave me the most meat possible on what's left. I'm just going to knock these corners off. I don't know whether I'll chamfer them or radius them, one of the two. And then I've just got to weld the other end on and it should be good to go. Now I've got him better sorted, you can see what's happening. I've just sat that through there. Come up here, that'll be just where I want him. So I've just got to go and contrive to weld this piece on now. I've got a fair idea how I'm going to go about that. I'll put it on video because I believe if you don't do it right, I know if you don't do it right, it's going to wreck the hydraulic ram. Now because there's plenty of room in where this fits, I'm just going to take a little chamfer off these. I'm not going to bother doing a full radius, knock the sharp edge off the corner, and that should be just fine. Putting out a lot more sparks than I really expected there. So I'm going to add another bit of safety gear to this. I'm just going to throw on a leather apron, and that's just so that my overalls don't catch fire, because that happened to me the other day. And laugh all you like, it was kind of funny in retrospect. The funny thing about it was I was talking to the wife in the hardware shop. We saw this leather apron and she said, "Oh, do you need one of them?" And I said, no, I wouldn't wear it. It's too hot to wear that. And she said, "Oh, you should have it." And of course I said, "Look, if I ever catch fire, I'll buy one," because that's what the main purpose of them is, to stop you catching fire. Well, you would not believe it. Within 2 days, I was doing a heavy grinding job, and normally I stand away from the sparks, but for some reason that day I didn't, and guess what? I caught fire. I am never going to live that down. But anyway, now I've got the apron, I better use it. That looks good enough. It's hidden inside the tower, so it won't be seen anyway. Okay, there's both of them done. And the next thing to do is to prep the other end for the weld. I'll turn the camera off for a minute while I get that set up. I've zoomed in on the end of the ram here, just to show you that that's what I've got to weld on there. And in order to get that done, I'm going to cut the bevel on two sides of this. Two opposite sides, doesn't matter which side, because of course the ram itself will rotate. Having those up and down will be the easiest. That's about to get a decent weld down in there. Just do the same on the opposite side. And try to keep them lined up even. I think that'll do. I'll just do the other one off camera. I just want to focus in on what I've done here. That's the end of the ram, and I've cut that bevel on each side of it, and I have a sample of the piece that I want to put on right here. Okay, the bevel is obviously not quite even, but the whole purpose of it is to let me get down in there to get the weld in properly, and I think it's going to serve that purpose all right. If I have any concerns, I'll just take a tiny little flat on there to match in there, but I don't think I'll need to. Alright, so they're all prepped up. I've just got to cut the two pieces of tube to go on the end. I'll weld them on, and the rams are ready to mount. I'll be able to put the side plates on the arms then, and then mount the front rams. The front rams shouldn't need any modification. They should go on the clevis ends just as is. I've got the end cut to weld back onto the hydraulic ram. I haven't got the part number for that handy, but it will be on the video in one of the plans that I put up at the beginning. And once I've finished this, of course, plans will be available on my website for downloading. But anyhow, for the moment, I've got to set that up, line it up so that it's level with the bevel, and the same overhang either side. So it shouldn't be too hard to do. An appropriate bit of packing and the ability to tack it without actually getting the rod stuck on it and pulling it out of shape. So I'll just sort of set that up, and I'll come back when I've got it set up. Right, I've got that shimmed up there, evened up side to side, shimmed up to this level. That's 38mm there and 32mm there, so I just shimming up 6mm, half of that, 3mm. Now I just got to tack it there. I've got to fill all that up with weld and without getting too much heat into it. And in order to weld it, I'm going to pull this ram all the way out, and I'm going to put some anti-spatter on the ram itself, and I'm going to have a bucket of water here to keep cooling it down. Because the last thing I want is the heat getting up into the rubber, what do you call them, glands, whatever, the things that hold the oil in. So I don't want to have to replace them. I'll just get set up for that, and I'll come back on camera and we'll get it done. I followed all my own advice here. I pulled the ram out. I think it comes out a bit further, but that should be plenty. I've sprayed up to about there, which is way more than I need to, with anti-spatter, just to make sure nothing sticks to the ram. Don't want anything, any spatter that sticks to it, any blemish that comes on it is going to rip those seals apart. Those rubber seals, that's the word I was looking for. Now I'm going to put some weld in here, one each side, knock the flux off, cool it down, come back, keep going until I fill it up. I'm going to start with some 7018 2.5mm, that's 3/32 of an inch, 100 amps, see how that goes. Once I get the bottom root pass in there, I'm going to switch to 3.2mm, which is 1/8 rods, a little bit more amperage, and do the fill passes. That looks like a decent pass on it. Now pass down here with the 3.2mm 7018 rods and a little bit more amperage. I'm going to crank that up to 125 thereabouts. It's worth pointing out that I use a metal bucket for cooling things like this, because I have seen some red hot metal, or getting close to white hot metal I think it was, a long time ago now, but it was dropped into a plastic bucket full of water, and by the time it hit the bottom of the bucket it was still hot enough to burn all the way through. Damn. Got a spark onto that. right on the end. Hopefully, not going to do anything to the seals. So I will get some really fine wet and dry, and I'll dress it up anyway. Thought I had the rod far enough away from that so it didn't spark. Must have just touched it at one point. I wiped off the anti-spatter with the water. Now I was supposed to use a degreaser to wipe it off, and I will do that before I go shoving this back in. And just a reminder again that I did this a little bit differently to the plans. I decided that I'd get away with just drilling a hole through the clevis that was there, close up on the cylinder, rather than cut them right off and weld another bush in there. Once I start fitting it to the tractor, we'll see how good it goes. I know it doesn't seem like much, but given the workload I've had recently, I think I did pretty well. On the positive side, I've got holidays coming up next week, so I hope to catch up a lot on this project and get it wrapped up before the holidays are over. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can go to my channel or browse to my website. Don't forget to click like, comment and subscribe for more. Until next time.